In any and every esport, there is always that one event that people highlight as one of the worst events of all time. And they might highlight it for a different number of reasons, whether it was just that all the players and matches were very bad or one-sided, or whether they didn't start on time due to delays, or whether there was good PCs for the players, or prize money wasn't being paid, or there was terrible servers, or people cheating, or, there wasn't an air-conditioned environment, or the venue itself was very bad, etc, etc. Basically, in esports, there's a particular standard for tournaments now and or events that people must abide, and it's almost as if in CSGO we get the worst of the worst. And I think it's mainly because there isn't really any organizations that are really backing these tournaments and making them something that people would remember, and they actually run smoothly and have at least financial support to actually keep things running. There are very few events in CSGO that come to mind where you're actually remembering them for running them, like for them being run smoothly. And I just wanted to talk today a little bit about the events that have happened and what kind of standards the CSGO community has when it comes to tournaments. So, first of all, I'm just going to say, if you can't do the basics, don't even bother hosting a tournament, an event, nothing. Don't touch it, please. Seriously, these players devote their time, money, efforts, organizations do as well, just to get to these venues. And if there's even more delays, that creates more complications with other conflicting tournaments, and sometimes even with the players themselves, their relationships with their families, and even sometimes their passports are being taken purely because there's a problem either with the organizer or with the event and the venue or the delays, etc. So I really think that the whole community really is behind me when I say that there are particular standards that must be met. So you're probably wondering, what are those standards? Well, first of all, it's pretty much unacceptable at this point for matches not to start on time. Every event I've ever seen has at least had this problem one way or another. Whether it's, 20 minutes of delay or most recently at Gamers Paradise, 25 hours of delay. And I mean, that's just purely unacceptable. That reminds me of the day when, Copenhagen Games was delayed, I think, was it for a day or maybe even 2 back in 2014? I mean, it's just utterly ridiculous. At this point in time, we're in 2015, we're almost moving into 2016, we've had at least, 6 majors. Don't people understand how to run an event nowadays? I mean, there are even some veteran events out there, like Zevo LAN. They've run LANs before, and they still have delays. It's mind-boggling to me. I mean, matches should start on time, regardless. You should be testing things like PCs before you even get the players there. Players should be warming up on PCs 20 minutes or 30 minutes before the match is starting, so then they can just jump in, join the server, be warmed up, and ready to go. It should be mandatory. It's a standard now. The second one is Twitch is the streaming platform. I don't care what anyone says. You can stream on MLG.TV, Hitbox, even Ding It, etc. None of those are up to the scratch or quality of Twitch. Twitch is the absolute best streaming platform. It has the biggest viewership. It has the best integration with CSGO streams. Why not? I don't understand. Yes, I understand there are some sponsors for some tournaments, and that's purely acceptable. I can understand that. But if you're not affiliated in any way, shape, or form, why are you hosting on MLG.TV? It doesn't make any sense to me. You're going to get lower viewership, and the stream isn't going to be as familiar to everyone. So, I don't... The next one is good quality audio and video. This one is a must. If you can't get this down, please never host an event, because that is the absolute bare minimum thing that you have to get right. If you don't have good quality audio and video, there's no point to having the stream at all. It's just a standard. You should at least have very high quality 720p at bare minimum with good audio that doesn't sound like, I don't know, from a lake, or it shouldn't be like lower than, like it should have proper levels and equalization and everything. The next one is have backup PCs or backup gear for players. Now, I'm not saying that this is an absolute mandatory thing, but it is something nice to have. It's a bit of an ancillary benefit, but to be honest, I mean, if you know that PCs are going to have problems, and every event has problems with their PCs, then just get some backup PCs, have them ready, have them tested, so then you can literally just plug them in if there's ever a problem to the extent that you need to replace the PC. Because otherwise it'll just create like a 2-hour delay, whereas you can cut it down to 20 minutes, you know. You're not scrounging for parts everywhere, you're not trying to find a new PC from, you know, like, or a really old one. You just have that one there ready and waiting in case there really is an issue. The other one is backup gear. Sometimes players either lose their gear gets stolen, or gets broken. I mean, literally, you should have like some spare mice, even if they're not the same mouse that they use. At least have it, because if anything ever happens, that player is not going to be able to play at all. Now, this is an absolute standard. Having good casters and analysts. I mean, it's absolutely pure that this has to be a requirement at this point. I mean, there are some events that have just had like completely new casters, and I've had no problems with them. They're fantastic. But at the same time, people want to see their big name casters up there. Yeah, I can understand some of the smaller events getting different casters, and I'm cool with that. I'm cool with CEVO having their own staff. I'm cool with ESEA having their own staff. That's fine. But honestly, at this point, you should have good casters, not casters that don't have any knowledge of the game or the players, or, you know, haven't watched any recent matches. It just blows my mind how you can even have someone on the analyst desk sitting there who has never seen like 2 tournaments before this, and they're talking about the team. It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, at this point, it's pretty much a very big standard that you would have this. It's actually frustrating me thinking about it. The next one is having good chairs and PCs. You know, at this point, PCs should be running the game over like 300 FPS. You should have 120 Hz monitors bare minimum. You should have nice chairs. I'm not saying they have to be the best chairs, or they have to be like from Need for Seat or anything. You know, you can just have nice, good, comfortable chairs. I don't want to see players on deck chairs or like plastic chairs or some random stuff. That's just stupid. It aggravates me so much that players going to be sitting there, possibly in a best of 5 match sometimes, in a plastic chair, and you can't even adjust it. I don't understand. The next one is anti-cheat measures. Now, this is an absolute must, especially now in this stage of the game. People think that other people are cheating, such as like people like Flusher and JW and, you know, Crims, Olafmeister, maybe even Snacks, you know, etc. VAC has just become a joke in Twitch chat now, and a meme, really, to the point where, look, I really do think there needs to be anti-cheat measures. I mean, Kaylee was the first player to really highlight this, and I still think it's something to have on the radar. A lot of tournaments are, you know, dropping their guard, and I don't understand why. I mean, you can have something as simple as having someone stand behind the players. I mean, it's not that big of a job. You don't really need to hire that many people. You just need to have it, you know, if you have 2 teams playing at the same time, it's 2 people, and all they do is scan their screens and try and look for walls. I mean, that's a simple anti-cheat solution. It's not going to catch everyone, but, you know, you can even ramp that up to, you know, the bigger tournaments like DreamHack, where they scan your drivers and they have like a client that, you know, has anti-cheat on it. Same with Faceit and ESEA. You know, it's just a very simple concept, and it should be something that's in the mix now. I mean, the esport's getting bigger. That is, CSGO is getting bigger as an esport, sorry, and there's getting bigger prize pools, and pretty much the whole game's expanding. Sooner or later, there are going to be more people who cheat. We're finding a lot more pros that are getting VAC banned now in online matches. You know, it's not an impossibility anymore. Maybe a couple years ago, but not anymore. Especially with, you know, things like, you know, cheats within the drivers of mice. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. You know, you have Steam Cloud cheats even. you need to have some sort of anti-cheat measures, and the fact that some tournaments don't really puts into question the credibility of the win from some teams, and even how their players are actually playing on that day, and how they have actually played in past tournaments, because sometimes people have been cheating in tournaments, and they've probably played some of the worst games of their lives. It may be even, and they just played ordinary, and then you think, well, that like match where they got a 40 bomb, was that legit? You know? So I really think that anti-cheat measures are a requirement at this stage. Everyone expects it in some way or another. You should have it. The next one is venues. Now, I'm not saying every venue must have a crowd, but I mean, you gotta have some fan meetups, you gotta have some space for the players. You know, I personally think a private player lounge is the way to go, like a common room area with some snacks, you know, a private like toilet, public toilet area, you know, a place for them to sit down, chill out, have some PCs to do some strategizing, etc. I think that's an absolute bare minimum at this stage. Conditioned environments, air-conditioned environments, sorry, is also a big thing within the scene. I mean, ESWC this year was just notorious for having terrible air conditioning. Same with, I think it was actually ESL, ESEA Pro League. I think that also had problems where the ESL studio had very crappy air conditioning, and a lot of the players from the colder countries like Sweden, Norway, Denmark, etc. weren't used to the heat, and you know that can play actually a part in the win, because some people psychologically are thinking it's hot, they're not focused on the game. You know, I think personally, if you don't have like at least a 22 degrees Celsius kind of venue, and it's, you know, like 28 degrees and boiling hot, or 35 degrees and boiling hot, you shouldn't be hosting an event. It's pointless. You're going to have players not performing to the standard that you want to produce good content with, that people want to watch and see. You know, it's just a must. This is a very bare minimum requirement, but it's reliable servers for the events. I've seen times where servers crash or just completely have VAC authentication errors, etc. You should be testing these servers and make sure that they're reliable before the event starts. Obviously, you can't account for everything. There's always anomalies. But for real, I mean, I've seen tournaments where the server is actually stuttering and you're just thinking, what is going on? Why? Why? And you like want to hit your head against the brick wall, man. I can't explain it, but that's like a bare minimum thing, just like video and audio quality. If you can't get that right, don't host an event, please. I've said it a million times throughout this video, but you really should be thinking whether you should be hosting an event if you can't get the absolute basics right. Now, the last one is a bit of a problem, not from like an audience or a viewer perspective, but it's more from a player perspective, and that's prize money not being paid. And I mean, look, I'm not saying that there's every tournament that's, you know, out there is guilty of this, but if you're not going to pay prize money, I mean, that's just like the ultimate dick move, you know? It's kind of like saying, hey, thanks for like turning up to my dinner party and giving me like free catering or something, and you can just like get tossed out by security and, you know, fuck you, I'm just going to have all this shit on the banquet. Thanks, bro. I can't. It's just prize money not being paid affects the players in so many ways. I mean, organizations are expecting this money, you know, players are expecting this money. It's part of their livelihood. You know, some players actually go out there and spend like $2,000 on like food for their family, toiletries, a whole bunch of things that they actually need for their family. They might even buy like a new car, for instance, etc. You know, because they believe that, you know, the event's going to pay them money in like 1 month time, and then nothing comes around, and their, you know, their car ends up being repossessed because they can't make payments on it. You know, it's just simple stuff like that that can actually go wrong, to the point where you just think, what's the point? Then on top of that, you get a bad name, and no one ever wants to be a part of a tournament that you create ever again. And, you know, you may host the best tournament of all time, but if you don't pay the prize money to players, forget it. You're going to have the worst reputation ever. No one's ever going to turn up to your events. It doesn't matter. You'll have a tainted name within the community. Sooner or later, one team will come out, you know. I think Virtus Pro came out, like, earlier or later in 2014 saying that they didn't get prize money from some events, and they actually named and shamed them. So I personally think these are just the minimum standards that we should have for tournaments. Now, here's some ancillary or optional things that I think actually improves tournaments, and the first one is observers. I mean, auto director's okay, but observers are a massive plus, really. They're so valuable that they're worth the money that you pay for them. Honestly, I mean, I think Katowice, both of them, the 2014 one and the 2015 one, have had some of the best observing I've ever seen. Absolutely ever seen in Counter-Strike. I hardly missed a moment of the action. I mean, that's what you expect from higher end tournaments at least, but lower end ones, I think you can have like an okay observer, but honestly, those big tournaments like ESL and DreamHack should just have the best observers. They've been doing it now for a while, and I really applaud them, but I mean, I think it was the ESL, ESEA Dubai Pro League. They had like some online matches with NATO Safix and Debut, and personally, I mean, they weren't doing a bad job. I understand it's very hard to run a stream and like cast at the same time whilst also giving analysis and observing the match, but like at the same time, you have to understand that there were times where we missed action, like things being locked on smokes, and we just totally missed an entire round pretty much, and there are just simple things that just need to be worked out, simple kinks, and I think if we get it done, and we get it done right, then, it's like the whole tournament and the whole viewership of the tournament just becomes enhanced by like the smallest details that the observer brings up, whether they turn off X-ray and then turn it on at the right times, or if they have, the correct positioning and timings to anticipate when an attack's going to come or execute, or even catching like, the most crazy AWP shots. Sometimes they get missed, and it's a real shame because you actually want to catch those crazy shots because they're just absolutely amazing. So, I think they're an optional thing. You can have good ones, bad ones. Either way, I think auto director's okay, especially for online tournaments, but I really would appreciate some good observers for, some of those bigger LANs like ESCA Pro League or, DreamHack Tours or Faceit LAN, etc. Those are good. Those are the types of tournaments that I want to see good observers at other than the majors. The next one is private rooms or booths for the players. So we had that at Cologne this year, and I think that was a really cool, like, different measure. Combining that with like security, I think that's also a really important thing. And we'll have a really good event where the players can actually have some privacy. I mean, they want to go out and get food and eat and sleep and go to the hotel room and etc. and move around the place without being hassled all the time. Yes, I get it. People want to meet the team or the players and, have photos with them, and that's cool. But if you have like particular sessions where that happens, and especially if a team gets knocked out, you'll have plenty of time to have meetups with them. They've booked in for as long as they have the tournament for, because there's a potential that they could make it to the final, so you might as well just wait around and see them then rather than hassle them all the time. I mean, I think it was an absolute joy to have that at Cologne because it just enhances the player's experience so much. Yeah, it's a bit of a dip for the audience, but I mean, if we can have some better security going on too in combination with that, then people sneaking into players' private areas and hassling them won't be really an issue, or it'll be negated at least, and, at least maybe the players might want to actually meet the fans a lot more often, have signing sessions with them, especially if they know that everyone's really cooperative, and, both parties then have a mutual benefit. You get to meet the players get to meet you, and, meet their fans and feel like good about themselves and what they've done for the fan base, The next one is crowds. Now, this could be good, but they have their own problems. Sometimes they give away like simple things like people sneaking up on people because they like say or they like are amazed and exclaim something. They might say something as simple as like wow, or they might go ooh, etc. Like, those moments can actually be given away, because if a player has push to talk on their mic, they hear this. If I heard that as a player through the mic, I might actually like instantly turn around and just check my back, because there's a possibility that someone like Snacks is sneaking up behind you or Get Right. You know, these are just simple things that sometimes the crowd gives away, you know. Even sometimes they're an annoyance to players. They put players off. Some people boo players while they're playing, especially at Cologne. I mean, there was a big thing with Fnatic where, you know, a lot of the VP fans were quite rowdy towards Fnatic. You know, it was just like, at this point in time, I really feel like crowds are going to be separated from the players a little bit more, and there's going to be like soundproof booths and stuff like that, which is the next thing I was going to talk about. But basically, you know, if you have crowds, you have to anticipate things like people being able to hear casters and the crowd themselves, and not being able to give away those things in the moment. Also, the same thing with like having monitors behind the players. I mean, I'm not saying players will do like a full 180 and turn their head and look behind them, but I mean, some players are able to cheat purely off like what the audience even looks like, because sometimes they're facing the audience, and if the audience is, you know, like amazed at what this person's about to do, you know, that can totally give away what's happening, even though you can't like look at your screen and see it. You know, I can't explain it, but basically the crowd can give away things. The next thing is soundproof booths. Now, they're a big plus, and they can actually allow some crowds to be at tournaments now with almost no issue, because at this point in time, you know, you've eliminated the sound aspect. It's more the visual aspect, and especially if you're in the game, you're really focusing on it. You won't really look at the crowd that much. And yeah, sometimes the crowd can really pump up a team and, you know, make them want to play more, but you know, at this point in time, I think soundproof booths are going to become the absolute minimum thing that is going to be the biggest ancillary benefit for players in tournaments. So, to me, the stage has been set. There are standards, and not every event has to be like ESL1 or DreamHack in terms of the wow factor, but for the love of God, please, get the basic shit right, and then host an event. Hey everyone, my name's Karma, and today I want to talk about the Valve Majors for CSGO, and some of the problems that is associated with Valve Majors since 2014, and how some players might be upset over basically how the game has grown so much, and yet Majors have been pretty much the same. So